Hello again, whiskey friends. It's good to see you back here. If you're new to the channel, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you're coming back, thanks again for all the support. Today, we're doing a head-to-head battle. These are some of my favorites to do just because simply I feel like it gets everybody on the same page as far as does this one actually taste like one another, or is it just that this is better? We're going to explore some of that as well as the palate, the nose, and the finish on both of these whiskeys. I really feel like this one might be another one that would surprise you. So let's get the show started. And here we go. Hey guys, welcome back again. We're in the Whiskey Riffs Lounge coming to you live. We're doing a battle head-to-head today of two well-known bourbons. If you haven't heard of these, you probably haven't been in bourbon very long, but these are two that I really feel like go well head-to-head and are very evenly matched. So let's see which one comes out on top of us. Also, I'm going to be giving some notes on some things that I feel like are greater differences between the two. So obviously, if you haven't figured it out yet, these are two 10 years. This is the Russell's Reserve 10 year. It's right around $30, $31 for that one. And then, of course, the Tater Bait, if you can find it. Eagle Rare, some people can find it really easy. Some people have never been able to find it. So it's just depending on where you live. These are both really, really good whiskeys. There's no doubt about either one of them. It just depends on like what your preference and profile prefers versus, a different. So we're going to start first with the Russells and get into the nose, the palate, the front, the middle, and the back, and then break down the score. And then we'll go on into the Eagle Rare. So cheers to you guys. You can see the color there is a really nice amber color, copper color. Let's go in for the nose. So again, I get a little bit of oak up front. It's not, even at 10 years, it's not overpowering. Caramel, a little bit of fruit, but more like not red fruit, but maybe some orange zest, citrus notes that are coming through up front. And then some sweetness. I wouldn't say it would be like dark sugar. I would say it would be more like a light sugar that kind of pops out on that. So let's go in for a taste for the front of the palate. Here we go. Cheers, everybody. So yeah, right up front, real sweet. The proof on both of these is 90. If you didn't know already, proof is 90. Both 10-year age stated. Up front, the Russell's provides a real sweet confectionery sugar with caramel and just like a little bit of sweet oak. I'm going to go back to the nose and see if anything else pops out. A little bit more of the oak comes out after tasting it. But all of those baking spices that are there, a little bit of cinnamon. I would say more like allspice than cinnamon per se. It's kind of got all those spices in there going on, but not overpowering. It's mostly vanilla and caramel up front that I'm getting more of along with the oak. So let's give this a taste on the front of the palate. So yeah, just again, sweet. It moves on into some of the oak. And then you get just a little bit. It's not real spicy at all. The only spice you get is like the baking spices up front, and that's sweetness. So not real overly complex. Not something that is just going to, you have to sit down and think about it a whole lot. But it's very, very good. It's a very easy pour, very easy and approachable pour for anybody getting into bourbon. I always tell people if they're going to start at 90 proof, this is one of the first bottles that I say to go get because they can actually be found. let's go in for the mid palate and the finish, and let's check on those things and see where they come out. So the mid palate is pretty much following the front of the palate. Now it does have a little bit of a hug. It's a little bit viscous, but not overly viscous on the mouthfeel. It's kind of thin. The finish lasts a pretty long time for a 90 proofer. I'm very, like, I can still feel it down in here. That could be the Taco Bell I just ate. But overall, it gets just a little bit of a hug down there. I'm going to rinse, and then we'll get into the Eagle Rare. Now, this is kind of where people get aggravated, or I guess the right word is frustrated, but a lot of people cannot find this easily. I can't find it easily. I see it about once a year, maybe twice a year if I'm lucky. But I think that there are things like this Russell's that are out there all the time that you can get your hands on. Even if you have to go on up to barrel proof at Eagle Rare, you're going to find either one of these, or 101 for that fact. There's just not as many available of these around my area, and I know for some people not around their area at all. So let's get into the breakdown of how Russell's comes across in the scores. So flavor score 80, experience score is 78, and then the value score is where this one really shined at 100. I just feel like for the 10-year age statement for a $30, $38 whiskey, I mean, my goodness gracious, it's just fantastic for a budget pour. And it's pretty consistent. There's not a whole lot of variations with this one. And we'll get onto the Eagle Rare and my thoughts on that in just a minute. But overall, this one did really well. Very good, you know, not going to blow your socks away, but it's definitely one to keep on your shelf and go to regularly and not feel guilty about drinking. A lot of times, the more bougie I get, sometimes the less that I find myself going back to these for some strange reason. Jeff and I were talking about this year that both of us have kind of lost touch with where some of these shelfers lie and how good they actually are for the money. And this is definitely one. So cheers to the Russell's family for always putting out quality whiskey and then making it affordable and taste great. So let's jump on into the Tater Bait. And you say, why do you call it Tater Bait? Because most people get these and they flip them. I don't know why everybody goes crazy over everything Buffalo Trace. When I got it first in bourbon, I was the same way. But I started listening to the people who had been in bourbon a little bit farther, and they were like, man, just try to figure out what you like first before going and buying a whole bunch of Tater bottles like this and E.H. Taylor small batch and everything else. But on this particular one, let's get into the nose. Let's try it. Let's make it even. Let's see how it stacks up. And we'll let the scores speak for themselves. So cheers to everybody. Again, this is 10 years. Same kind of color, maybe just a hair darker, I think, than the Russell's 10-year on the color. Let's go into the nose. So right up front, all that sweet caramel, cherry. On this particular one, there's just a hint of, you guys remember the Hubba Bubba grape bubble gum? Man, that's in here. And some of these are even more pronounced, like on store picks that I've had before. That grape note is very pronounced, but it's in there. It's just not overpowering. I really get more of the oak up front on this than I did on the Russell's. It's sweet oak, but it's still a little bit more oak forward than the Russell's is. Very sweet on the nose. Nothing off-putting at all. Let's go in for a taste. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining. So yeah, that follows through on the palate. Like I get a little bit more oak up front, whereas I got a little bit more sweetness up front with the Russell's. Then All of that just is a little bit more drying. Even the oak is a little bit more drying on my palate than the Russell's was. Um, Same kind of flavors that are similar to what I think about Eagle Rare if you've never had it. Very sweet up front, but this is more oaky. A lot of people don't like that oak up front, but I like it. It does tend to dry out the back of the palate on this particular bottle. Both of these are fresh cracks. Like I've barely gotten into them at all, just to try to make it as even as I possibly could. I mean, literally just poured these. But on this Eagle Rare, it's a little bit more oaky than I remembered the other ones. I have a store pick, but I didn't feel like that was a very fair battle because that one's been open for a little while. So I wanted to do something that was extremely close, extremely fair. Now going back to the nose after tasting it, that oak has dissipated a little bit and more of the fruit notes have come out. Mostly like red fruit cherries, that Buffalo Trace cherry. It's not medicinal on this one. Some of them can get really medicinal, but this wasn't too bad. So let's go in for the mid palate and see how it stacks up. Yeah, second sip, mid palate. You get a little bit more of the grape note coming through on that after you swallow, and then it's a little bit more viscous too. A little bit more mouth coating than the Russells on this particular one. So if you like a little bit more oak up front, definitely probably going to like this Eagle Rare. More sweet up front, not as much oak, even though they're the same age stated. This one comes off a little bit oakier. On the finish on this one, this one's a little bit, like I said, a little bit more mouth coating. It stays around a little bit longer for a 90 proofer. Both of these, I will say, have longer finishes for a 90 proof whiskey. That's one of the things that as I was scoring these, I noticed that both of these provide an experience where the mouthfeel and finish is actually pretty long comparatively for other 90 proofers that I've had. So both provide a really good experience. Let's look at the breakdown on Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare, a little bit lower, 77.5, a 76, and an 80. I went a little bit lower on the value score on this one because most of the time I cannot find it for what its MSRP is. And it's a lot harder to find. So the value on it went down. Total score of 77 versus an 81. So one is good, one's very good. Now, if you guys are wondering where we're getting these scores from, we do a spreadsheet fill out on every single whiskey that we taste and rank and review. So these are all a bunch of questions and analytics went into comprising this makeup. And if you want to find out more about that, just join our Patreon. It should be in the link, or just click on the channel and view Patreon as well. But it's just one of those things where we really try to make some analytics for us to go back and review as later on as well, because I know Jeff has done this one as well, the 10 years. So I want to go back and look at his scores and compare as well how he scored this, and you can do the same on our Patreon as well. That's pretty much it, guys. So overall, both are a really, really good balanced whiskey. Both provide a pleasurable experience that's consistent with whiskeys at that price point. But I think the biggest difference, which you probably already know if you're in bourbon, is that you're going to be able to find this. You're not always going to be able to find this. So when you can find it, grab it if that's something that floats your boat and it's a little bit more oaky than the Russells. The Russells a little sweeter, a profile that's crushable for me. This one is a little bit oakier, drier on the back end and the finish, which it's not off-putting. It's just a different note. So overall, my preference is always going to be this because I can find it anywhere. Like I just called my local store. I've forgotten that I drank all the other one that I had, so I could call the local store and grab it. So long story longer, thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for all that you provide for us. Feedback. If you guys have ideas for things you want to see content-wise or questions, leave it in the comments. Leave a question on our Patreon if you're involved in that. If you want to be involved in our Patreon, send us a message. Shoot me an email at thewhiskyrishlounge@gmail.com or Jeff or Darrell on Facebook or Instagram. So cheers, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Sorry this one was a little bit longer, but it was fun. I hope you enjoyed it with me. Come back for next time, and we'll do this all over.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these